And so we talk about how behaviors will change in the suggestion part of it. It's like, and now you're calm and confident when you're in front of a crowd. And you know these things, you have wisdom. And so when you present them, you're more excited and less anxious. You understand that excitement and anxiety are closely woven together. And so now you can tune into your excitement when you have an opportunity to speak. See how I use different suggestions instead of, and that's the part where you start to empower them to make changes in their thinking.
Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. This week's episode is a Podcourse, which means it qualifies for one NBCC Continuing Education Contact Hour. It's titled Integrating Hypnotherapy with CBT, and it's presented by Tracy Kenela. Here's a little bit about Tracy. She is a licensed mental health counselor, a certified rehabilitation counselor, a certified eating disorder specialist, and an advanced clinical hypnotherapist. Tracy has over 17 years of experience counseling individuals, couples, and families, and has practiced hypnotherapy since 2014. Tracy's approach to counseling is based on the belief that everybody has the power within themselves to work through painful, confusing, and chaotic situations and develop a plan to live peaceful and meaningful lives. Using a variety of cognitive, behavioral, energetic, and mind-body techniques, Tracy is passionately committed to helping her clients achieve harmony, unity, and agreement in their lives. She uses a highly intuitive approach that is customized to fit each individual client, and she believes that no two people have the same history, the same struggle, or the same recovery process. So by the end of this Podcourse, you will be able to illustrate the difference between hypnosis and hypnotherapy, explain how hypnotherapy works and summarize why it is so effective, explain how CBT can be used during hypnotherapy, and list the different conditions that can be treated by hypnotherapy. We want you to know this information is for educational purposes only and should not be a substitute for seeking treatment from a licensed mental health provider. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Therapy Show. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard, and today's episode is really interesting. It is a Podcourse, and I am talking with Tracy Kenela of Loka High Counseling. So welcome to the show, Tracy.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me here. I'm so excited to talk about hypnotherapy.
I know hypnotherapy. It's really cool. Now, for background, I know nothing about hypnotherapy. It's not something I've ever been trained in. I know nothing about it. So I'm really excited about learning today. Today's episode is a Podcourse. So this episode will be available for purchase. So you can get one NBCC contact hour when you head to my site and click on the Podcourse tab. And this episode will eventually be in that listing of episodes. And you guys know you can always get your first one free when you sign up at my website. So Tracy, please share with our audience who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I have a private practice here in Olympia, Washington. And so I treat people who struggle with anxiety, depression, trauma-related behaviors, and PTSD. Also, I have a specialty in eating disorders. I'm a certified rehabilitation counselor. And also, I am a advanced clinical hypnotherapist. So I do a lot of different treatment modalities for a lot of different types of disorders in my private practice.
Yeah, that's really cool. And how did you decide to become a therapist? I know your story, but maybe our listeners don't.
Well, it was sort of a zigzag path journey, actually. I started out wanting to be a musician. And so the only way I went to college was because of a music scholarship that I received way back in 1983. And made me able to go to college. And so after that, I had really no direction in my life because college was over for me because the scholarship had run out. So I spent about 12 years in the corporate world trying to figure out where I belonged. and in the process got a degree in accounting and worked in human resources and accounting for so many years. And I thought, wow, I really had the ability to calm people down when I was doing payroll, because a lot of people get very excited about payroll and their paychecks and money in general. And I thought, I wonder if I went back to school, if I could get a degree or a certification in human resources. And as I was in school in my undergrad, I thought, I don't want to be in the middle here, in the middle of upper management and the employees. I wanted to have more power than that. I wanted to be able to do more direct change. So that's what led me into the path of maybe I will become a counselor. And I did. I got my undergrad and I was able to get a job as a vocational rehabilitation counselor. So I have a huge background in career counseling, working with people who have chronic pain and injuries. And that's how that came about. And then I decided to go into private practice on my own and get my master's degree. And so here I am today and just loving it.
Oh, that's awesome. You have a thriving private practice. I know you were sharing earlier that you are booked. You are fully booked. And that's a wonderful thing to be, right? As a therapist. So congratulations.
Yeah. And that's why I have a podcast called Calming the Chaos that I started because of that very thing, is that I wanted to offer some people some self-help resources if they couldn't get in to see me in my private practice. And I've kind of made it a little bit fun and goofy. And Lisa, you've been on the show a couple of times and it got pretty wild there for a bit, but we do have fun. And I do try and help people to learn some self-help tools.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a great podcast, and we'll link to your show in the show notes so folks can check out Calming the Chaos. That is the name of your show. All right, so let's dive into the content today, what we're going to talk about. And really the title of this I'm playing around with is Integrating Hypnotherapy with CBT. So this course is designed to help you illustrate the difference between hypnosis and hypnotherapy, explain how hypnotherapy works and summarize why it is so effective, explain how CBT can be used during hypnotherapy, and list the conditions that can be treated by hypnotherapy. And I'm guessing we're also going to cover maybe some issues or diagnoses that do not bode well for hypnotherapy. We probably should touch on that too as we get going. Okay, so you want to just jump into tell us about the difference between hypnosis and hypnotherapy.
Yeah, a lot of people get these confused, but hypnosis is a calm or relaxed state of mind. So when you are in hypnosis, you are in a calm, relaxed state of mind. And we'll go in a little bit more detail about what this means later. So the brain waves typically function at a higher level when you are integrating with other people, when you're conscious, when you're going about your day. And these brain waves are at a higher frequency when you are doing your daily activities. Well, hypnosis puts you in a state of trance where you're more susceptible to suggestion. And when I talk about suggestion, I'm saying that so if I suggest that you are now going to go about your life feeling free and unafraid of any sort of consequences. That's a suggestion, right?
Right.
Similarly, a suggestion would be you are going to be a failure in your life. And we've probably heard those negative suggestions a lot when we were growing up or possibly even when we were adults. But we use that calm hypnosis state of mind to be able to have the person more susceptible to these positive suggestions that'll change their lives and change their behaviors. So hypnosis could actually just be the point where you actually get into that state of brainwave where you've got light meditation, possibly almost asleep sort of state of mind. So remember, hypnosis is the calm, relaxed state of your mind. Hypnotherapy is using the state of hypnosis, and it is a method that you could use that happens when a person is in a state of hypnosis. So you put the person in a state of hypnosis, and then you actually do therapy with them. And part of it would be using cognitive behavioral therapy, which we'll go into in a little bit. But when you are in that state of hypnosis and you are doing therapy with a person, again, they are more susceptible to changing their beliefs. and also being more susceptible to attaining their goals. And by the way, I might mention here that it's not like those shows that you see on cruise ships where you suggest that a person bark like a dog or cluck like a duck or do some kind of weird dance or take off their clothes, right?
Right.
That does happen, but hypnosis and hypnotherapy, they cannot get you to do anything you wouldn't normally do anyway. So those people who are on the stage and doing that kind of stuff, they would have done it anyway. And so I just wanted to make that clear that we're not trying to brainwash you here. We are helping you to achieve your goals. It's just another way than the talk therapy traditional model.
Yeah, it's really cool. I want to try it. Maybe I could use it. What types of diagnoses would people have when they come looking for hypnotherapy? Or how do you discern when it's appropriate?
Well, hypnotherapy for me would be probably the last ditch effort.
Okay.
Yeah. So on my menu of items, of course, most people are trained in cognitive therapy, but I also have some energetic techniques I use. But I always start with cognitive therapy because it's evidence-based, because it's the most researched, it's the most found to have success in these in most mental health diagnoses. So cognitive therapy, meaning your thoughts are influencing your feelings and your feelings are influencing your thoughts, and they in turn influence your behaviors. And usually when people come in, they want to change a behavior.
Right.
So CBT is the logical first step. Some people don't respond well to talk therapy, or they've come in and they've had years of talk therapy and they're just like stuck at a place. And that, I think, is a good time to talk about alternative techniques, energetic techniques like emotional freedom technique. But hypnotherapy is definitely on that list to where we could consider that. And I always have a conversation with the people that are interested in hypnotherapy first, just to help them to understand what it entails and what might happen and dispel any myths that they may have.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. So it sounds like it's one of those things that you wouldn't initially want to suggest. You want to be working with the person and get a sense for where they are. It's not something they come in first time and you're like, let's jump into some hypnotherapy and see what happens. Yeah, I gotcha.
Right, right. And some people do actually contact me for just specifically for hypnotherapy. We still have that conversation. And what is it that you want to accomplish in hypnotherapy? Some people are like, well, I just sort of want to see if I have had a past life. And so then I ask them, are you struggling with a problem in the present life that you want to get resolved and you think might be a past life issue? Because we don't want to go there if it's not anything that's affecting your current life. And so sometimes the conversation ends there and we do cognitive therapy. And other times they have a really good point.
Yeah.
And they may embark on something that they don't understand or don't remember, and they could consider a past life. I never want to suggest anything about that kind of stuff because people have different beliefs in that stuff.
Right.
But, I never discount the client's experience.
Sure.
So I would like to say, what's your problem in the present? And then, yeah, if you would like to do some hypnotherapy, here's what it entails and the benefits and the risks involved. And I'll explain that all before we even start. And then what I will do is I will see how susceptible they are to suggestion. And we might as well go here as we're plugging along, because susceptibility varies between everybody. So I might hypnotize you, Lisa, and you might just be saying in your mind, like, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. And then, or maybe I could get another colleague and they're just like, oh yes, it's going to work. It's going to work. And that the susceptibility of it is what really helps you to either benefit from hypnotherapy or not benefit from hypnotherapy.
Okay.
So we do some susceptibility tests before we even have any sort of hypnotherapy session, and susceptibility tests just to see how quickly you go into trance and how susceptible you are to suggestion. One of the tests we do is we have the person close their eyes and we have them imagine a balloon tied to their right wrist, and then it has helium in it, and then we see how much the hand goes up And then we say, now we want to put like a weight or like a bucket of sand, and we want you to clasp it in your left hand and see how much it goes down. And sometimes the hands don't move, right? And that's how you can tell. That's one way you can tell if you're susceptible to suggestion. Like, I've got sand I'm carrying, and yeah, I'm really,
Yeah.
really into it. I'm really feeling it. And so some people are more susceptible than
Huh.
others.
That's really cool. So that's a test that you do prior to starting, just to kind of figure out, this person, is it going to work for this person?
Yeah, we put them in a
Mhm.
trance. And then when they're in a trance, and I'm pretty sure that they're in a trance, then we do that susceptibility test and see if they are actually susceptible. You can see some people's hands go way up there, and it's like, okay, they're really susceptible.
Yeah.
But so you just kind of know
Yeah.
how far to push and everything like that. So.
So when it comes to putting somebody into a trance, not that we can, I know, so just let me back up. What does that look like when you put somebody in a trance? How does that go?
Well, there's two parts of a trance. There's the induction, and then there's the deepening. So the induction is going to be, the way I do it is the eyes focused on a point where they're gently tugging up and they're looking at the ceiling. They're just gently looking up there. So not like you're straining your eyes, but you are continuously focusing on this point on the ceiling. As my voice gets slower and we continue to focus, we pay attention to our breathing, make sure that it's slowing down. So after a time, I'll have them close their eyes. And then the deepening part of it is going to be that you imagine them like on a staircase or on a slope or something high where they're stepping down. I one time went to a hypnotherapist and they put me in an elevator, and I didn't like that because I don't like elevators. So I just imagined stairs instead. But you want to make sure that you have a person that's on a high level go down deeper and slower, and breathing slows down and brain waves slow down.
It's fascinating that you have you said induction and then the deepening stage.
Right. And then you are going to imagine a really calm, quiet place that you want to anchor in, that a person can bring in. They can imagine a place they've never been before, or recall a place that's been really calming and relaxing. But then by that time, their brain waves are slowing down and they are actually really super calm. And you can tell because their chest is rising and falling at a slower rate. And of course, you're suggesting that to them anyway. Now you're noticing that the sounds in the room, you're not hearing them and they're not mattering, and that you're in this deep state of relaxation. And that's the two phases of hypnosis. You are in a trance when you've done the induction, and the deepening usually takes about 15 minutes to do for the first time. The second time, a lot of people just kind of know and they get into that relaxed state. You can do it within 5 or 7 minutes.
Very cool. Are they typically sitting or laying down?
They can do either one. Some people aren't comfortable laying down. So I have a couch in my office. I've actually done it over the internet too, over Zoom, telehealth, and they've just found a comfortable place. The one thing I do ask is that they support their neck, whatever it is they support their neck, because if their neck is tense, then they're just not going to be feeling the full benefits of relaxation. So if they're wanting to sit up, I will suggest that they put a pillow between their neck and the wall so that they're a little bit more comfortable. And then by the second time they do it, the people know what position they're more comfortable in, and they just go right to it if they're laying down or if they're sitting up.
Yeah, very cool. Well, while we're talking about hypnotherapy and telehealth, are there any precautions or anything that you recommend for therapists out there who do hypnotherapy and who might be wondering, like, is it possible to do it online or virtually? What have you learned from the past year?
Well, the first hypnotherapy session I did online, I was really super surprised how well it worked. I didn't know how well it was going to work. And I disclosed to this person, this is the first one I'm doing during COVID. This is the first one. So we'll see how it works. So we're both sort of embarking on this journey together. And this person wanted hypnotherapy and they were completely fine with it. And yeah, it really, and I don't know if it was because they were in their own home and they really felt that they could get comfortable in their own bed or wherever they were at, but it was really super effective. And I've not since then had a situation where I've had hypnotherapy over telehealth that it hasn't worked, because then I've been able to say, well, I've done it before and it's worked.
Mm. Yeah.
So it was just that first time where I was like, I've never done this before over the Zoom.
Yeah.
So let's just go through this together. And they were fine with it. But after that, I was able to give the person the suggestion. It's going to be fine. I've done it before. I
Right.
might want to mention, though, before you actually even hypnotize anybody, you want to make sure that you get a list of resources that they have. So if they're really close to their family members, or they have a pet, or they have a grandma that has passed on that they feel like they're in connection with, or if they have a higher power, spiritual beliefs, anything like that, you want to get a good idea, because it's possible that when they're in a trance state working through their issues, because they're so susceptible to suggestion, they may feel emotions more intensely and need resources to go back to. That's why we do the deepening part with the nice, comfortable, safe, and calm place, is that we can always take them back to that place and say, now we're going to go back to that place and we're going to calm you down. We're going to calm the body down. We do want to make sure that we are extra sensitive to people who could possibly go into shock during the hypnotherapy process. So,
Okay. And is that something that you assess for ahead of time when you say shock?
well, and you can't ever tell if a person's going to go into
Mhm.
shock. So
Mhm.
you have to prepare them as if they will. And that's why you go and you talk about resources, and you talk about, well, so if you were in a real tough situation, who would come to help you?
Mhm.
Or if you were really in trouble and needed to relax, does ice or heat or Kleenex or a blanket, and have those things nearby for the session so that they'll be comfortable and safe. And I've had people before go into shock over the Zoom during a hypnotherapy session, and we've made it work with just the tools they have around them, like a
Mhm.
blanket or something they can touch. And they actually learn to use their environment to help them through a really awful, hard situation. And I think it's a great lesson if you
Yeah.
go into shock during hypnotherapy and we are able to get you out of it,
Mhm.
even if it is that they open their eyes and I tell them to open their eyes and I look into the camera and they look right into my eyes, and then that gets them back as well, and that gets them calmed down. So there's all
Wow.
kinds of ways you can do that over the telehealth system, and
Mhm.
it's really I've learned a lot about hypnotherapy and telehealth this last year.
Wow. Well, you know what? Maybe we'll have to do another training on that, because it sounds like that is a whole other training in itself,
Yeah.
if you're a
Right.
hypnotherapist. Yeah. Okay. And is this stuff that you learned on your own, or is this a course that you took, or?
Yeah, this actually, I was trained through the Wellness Institute, which was a 6-day training, and then you have to have 20 sessions of therapy with a
Mhm.
regression, which I'll talk about what a regression is when we get into the therapy part of it.
Mhm.
And then after you get those 20 sessions done and signed off, then you can be a clinical hypnotherapist. I'm actually licensed through the state of Washington as a mental health counselor. So I've got that going. And so I didn't have to register as a hypnotherapist because I'm already licensed. That's a higher credential. But I've got the training. And then I did a 2-year internship where we had intensive 4-day weekends. We'd have Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. No, I guess it was 5,
Mhm.
Thursday through Mondays. I did
Wow.
that for 2 years. And then we got more sessions, and we got the advanced clinical hypnotherapist credential. So
Man.
it did take a training program. I also went on to do some post training as well for another year. So I've
Mhm.
got like 3 years and 6 days of training with being a hypnotherapist. And the Wellness Institute has had to make some adjustments to their program. They're in Issaquah, but they're also all around the country. And they are doing, I think, completely telehealth right now, which I don't know how that's working, but they're still doing their stuff. So if anybody's interested in training, I'd be happy to let you know what their name is, or you can link to it or whatever you need.
Okay, cool. So you
Yeah.
you definitely know what you're talking about. You are advanced clinical. This is something that, I mean, gosh, I'm just blown away by what how many trainings are out there and what we can get certified in. It's pretty fascinating. So
Mm.
I'm so glad you're here sharing all about this.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tracy, let's shift and talk some about explain how hypnotherapy really works. What's going on in your brain with hypnotherapy?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned before, just briefly, we have brain waves, and
Mhm.
brain waves are kind of like sound waves, and they are at a certain level of hertz or Hz. So as we're walking around in our daily life and we're doing our things, we're making our breakfast, we're getting our kids off to school or whatever we're doing, we are in the beta wavelength in our brains. And our beta wavelength is about 14 to 40 hertz. Those are the frequency and the speed of which your brain waves are traveling. If you want to equate it to sound, if you've ever seen sound waves, and you see like the electric guitar, and then you've seen like something like the flute, they're completely different sound waves. And so a lot of times I like to think of the waves in my brain kind of like sound waves because I'm a musician, as I've mentioned before.
Mhm.
But we're talking if you're in an alert state and you're going about your day, you're in beta wave. And then there's alpha, which is a deep relaxation wave. So this is still like when you have your eyes open, but you're really super relaxed. So, what we want to get to in the hypnosis trance and being able to deepen into is the theta waves. Now, I know some musician friends who actually play music during hypnotherapy that is pure theta waves. And I have a recording that's pure theta that helps the brain get into that slower sort of rhythm where you're still conscious and you can still talk,
Mhm.
but your brain is moving so much slower. And again, when your theta waves are, that's like 4 to like 7.5 hertz. So that's
Okay.
way lower than the 14. It's like half
Mhm.
of what you would be when you are in your awakened state. So imagine how your brain is working and just decrease it by half, and it just slows it down that much. So I think that's pretty fascinating. And again, when you're in the theta sort of wavelength, you're going to be more susceptible to any sort of suggestions that happen. You're going to remember more. You're going to be able to do a whole lot different work in therapy. And that's where the cognitive therapy comes in after that.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. I'm trying to imagine what that must feel like.
You really want to be hypnotized, I'm
Yeah.
sensing.
I know. I think I do.
Are you one of those people who would want to have a hypnosis session or a hypnotherapy session just to see what happens? Or do you,
I
yeah,
think
you'd have to
so.
have a problem that you want
I
to
know.
work on.
I'm sure. Look, I could come up with a problem. Trust me. I'm
Okay.
sure I
I
could come
think
up with a
most
problem.
of us could. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so once you get into that state, you keep them there by using your voice, I guess, by using how do you keep them in that state?
Well, yeah. So, and this is the tricky part when you get into the therapy part. So,
Mhm.
when you're in your nice little calm place and all your brain waves are slower and all that stuff is happening, it's great. But then what you do is you say, now, so say somebody's coming in because they're working on anxiety and they are getting anxious when they have to do presentations at work. And that's the specific problem. So I will ask them after they've gotten into the theta zone and then they're all calm and relaxed and their brain waves are going, not like an EKG monitor, but more
Mhm.
like a, slow ocean wave. And we can get those little suggestions in there. I'll ask them to go back to the most recent time where they have experienced this anxiety.
Mhm.
And we will use that and we will start to talk. And so the
Okay.
person is very conscious that they're telling me what they are observing and they're actually feeling it in their physical body. Like, all right, now I am at that presentation and I'm feeling it through my physical body. I'm feeling my heart start to beat a little bit faster. So what you said about keeping them in the hypnosis state, sometimes it doesn't I mean they're still under the trance, right? And
Right.
they are really in this memory. Even if
Mhm.
it's a most recent memory, they're really in that memory. So their heart might start to beat a little faster. Their breathing might start to increase a little bit because they're experiencing the anxiety. And so, what we want to do is we want to help them to process that and grow confidence that they can get through the bodily feelings of anxiety and then the
Mhm.
thoughts as well. And it's very empowering because
Oh, yeah.
people understand that they can re experience this event differently We talk about the thoughts that they would have had during that presentation. Okay, what were you thinking? Right?
Mhm.
How are you feeling? Those are
Mhm.
the basics of cognitive therapy: think,
Mhm.
feel, and what were you doing?
Mhm.
And what they want to do is not sweat. They don't want to blush, or they don't want to freak out and lose their speech. Those are the things they don't want to do anymore.
Mhm.
And so we talk about how behaviors will change in the suggestion part of it. It's like, and now you're calm and confident when you're in front of a crowd. And you know these things, you have wisdom. And so when you present them, you're more excited and
Yeah.
less anxious. You understand that excitement and anxiety are closely woven together. And so now you can tune into your excitement when you have an opportunity to speak. See how I use different suggestions
Yeah.
instead of, and that's the part where you start to empower them to make changes in their thinking.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. You're like, well, you're reframing the thought,
Yeah.
you're giving them you're changing the narrative for them as to
Yes.
what their thoughts are. I love that. I mean, I just think so much of what we do is just helping people reframe so much.
Right.
Yeah.
It goes back to that cognitive therapy, that think, feel, and do.
Mhm.
And so the Robin Chapman book, that is one of the references here, really goes into detail. If therapists want to know how to do that, if they already know how to do hypnosis, this book does a really nice job of explaining how you can use cognitive therapy while a person is in a hypnotic trance. I would still recommend going to a training course that had some sort of structure to it. The book is just one tool that you can use just
Mm.
to find out more if you want to get trained in this
Yeah.
sort of method of treatment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so neat. I love it. I just want to ask, are there other treatment modalities that some folks might want to use when they're doing hypnotherapy? Like you definitely use CBT, but are there other models out there that some folks might want to consider?
Oh, yeah. Well, so, and one of the things I talked about earlier was emotional freedom technique, which is the energetic, like tapping on
Mhm.
certain acupressure meridian points on your hands, your face,
Mhm.
and some parts of your body. And so that is a really good method to use. You can use that during hypnotherapy if a client goes into shock. I'll just have them tap on, I'll introduce a point to them. I'll have them
Mhm.
tap under the nose, say. I'll be having them do that. And they will be able to send their brain the signals that it's safe. The amygdala goes into fight or flight sometimes during
Mhm.
hypnotherapy. And so we do sort of need that. So there's that other method that I would use during hypnotherapy. A lot of visualization and mind body techniques go
Mhm.
into it too. Like, so you feel this in your physical body, going back to the anxiety example, when you're in front of your colleagues presenting something and you notice that you're starting to sweat, your breathing gets shallow, your heart starts to beat really fast. And so what we might want to do then is go back to the source of where this feeling first started. So that this entails some visualization techniques. What you would do with the person in that situation is ask them to go back as far as they can to the youngest time that they remember feeling these feelings in their body. And
Mhm.
you would be amazed. This is a regression.
Mhm.
This is sometimes very telling about where the problem started. And a lot of times, people who go under hypnotherapy, they are amazed, like, wow, I didn't know it started when I was 7 and I was on the playground and people were laughing at me because I had a red jacket on and everybody else had blue jackets on.
Right.
So, and yeah, so they get really connected with the source of that, and we can do some healing behind, and like I'll use some tapping like this, like we're going to tap for that little boy out there on the playground who's getting teased because of his jacket, and we're just going to make sure that he gets comforted. And what
Mhm.
else would he like to get comforted at this point in time? What would he have liked to say to those people? Let's put a resource next to him and have him talk to those people and speak his truth. And sometimes that just kind of clears things up and people's energy shifts, and they also get these really good suggestions, and when they come out they're just like, what just happened to me?
Right. Oh, I bet.
Yeah, but they've
Oh,
changed their thinking because their
yeah.
belief. So his conclusion when he was a child may have been, I'm not good enough, right?
Right.
Which is a very common, cognition or belief
Mhm.
that people have about themselves. And
Mhm.
their behavior might have been, get scared and run away.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
Because I'm not good enough, I get scared and run away. Those are the old conclusions and decisions we've come to live out our whole entire life until we're 30. And now we're in front of this group of
Right.
people. And I'm supposed to be giving a presentation. Those same beliefs are still in place. We want to go back to the source and see if we can change them. Like, have this kid realize that he was good enough, that he just had a different color jacket on. And
Right.
he does have help and he does have resources and he has the resources within so that
Mhm.
he can do great things. And then as the adult gives the presentation, they find that the anxiety is just isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
They
Oh.
change their beliefs to I am worthwhile. I do have a lot to offer. I am wise, or whatever they come up with,
Mhm.
their new cognition, their new belief about themselves, and then their new behavior. What are you
Mhm.
going to do? I'm going to use skills. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to visualize success. I'm going to cope ahead, whatever it might be. They get to decide their new conclusion about themselves and their new life's decision and path.
Yeah. Oh. Just listening to you explain it so well. I mean, I just have so much hope for folks who want to, give hypnotherapy and CBT a try as a way to manage or to overcome what they've been through, their obstacles, as well as therapists out there. Like this fascinates me. Like now I want to go get trained in this. And you, you have a way. I mean, I can definitely see how this can work for people. It's really something.
Yeah, I had a client one time before I was trained as a hypnotherapist, and she went to a hypnotherapist and she said, "You know what? I think this person cured me. I don't think I'm coming back to see you." And I said, "Whoa, give me that person's name."
Yeah.
So I went to see that person. That's the person that told me to get in an elevator. And I thought, this is okay, but I really want to learn more. So there's people who do Ericksonian hypnotherapy. That's not me. I do a lot of suggestions, and we can talk a little bit more about what we could do those suggestions for and what may or may not work.
Mm.
But I decided that I wanted to get trained because it helped her so much, and I wanted to learn how to do this work. It was totally different, and I wanted to give my clients another tool to use.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. I love that. That's something else. Tracy, so would you go ahead and walk us through from start to finish a hypnotherapy session with a topic of your choice?
Yeah, and I would like to put out there chronic pain, because a lot of
Mhm,
people come in with chronic pain, and it's so complicated with pain because there's a physiological thing that's going on in your body, and then you're having an emotional response to that physiological pain. So there's two things, and so when people are in chronic pain, they're in double pain. And a
mhm,
lot of people just don't understand the magnitude of pain that these people are in physiologically and emotionally. So, say a person with chronic pain comes in and they want to be able to manage their pain a lot better. So, if they have pain from an accident or an injury before, we want to make sure that they're properly supported. If we do hypnotherapy, that is, that if they have a back condition, let's just say this person has a back condition, that they have the support on their back that they need, that they're not straining anything, that they're either lying down or sitting up. And then we do want to do the interview. The interview being, we want to say, all right, so what is it that you want to have happen in this? And we write it down. So I want to be free from the overwhelming pain that I'm in. I really want to be able to live more freely in my life, move around more freely, and get rid of a lot of the emotional stuff that's coming up for me at this point in time, right? So it's a pretty tall order, and we
yeah,
may not do it in one session, but this is where we would start. Is I have their goals, which I just wrote down, and then I would go with them and ask them, first off, if they would be willing to learn emotional freedom technique. Now, the reason I would do that with a chronic pain person is because emotional freedom technique has been shown to actually work with pains in the neck or the back. It actually works with your body's energy system. So I would probably teach them just the basics of tapping, where the points are, so that
okay,
they could use that as a resource in case their pain flared up during the hypnotherapy session.
okay.
And then what we would do is get a list of resources that they have. They have their family members, or some people don't have resources at all, or they can't think of them. They don't even have a pet, or their goldfish just died, or whatever it was. And it's just so hard. So sometimes we'd like to build on role models or envision somebody that they think might be comforting, or just maybe a tree that they find comforting to look at. And you make a list of those. So you want to make a list of all that stuff, their goals. And you do want to say, you keep in your mind, and this is where you can use your creativity. How would I turn their goals into suggestions, hypnotic suggestions? So this is the thing that the therapist has got to maybe keep in mind. And then when we're ready to do the session, the person finds a comfortable place. They're either laying down or sitting up, but make sure their back is supported and that they have Kleenex nearby and some water nearby. And they would look up at the ceiling, find a spot on the ceiling and focus their eyes. And they would continue to focus on their breathing and slowing down their breathing in and out. And my voice would get slower and slower. And keep looking at that point on the ceiling. Your eyes might be getting heavy, but keep them open. And then we'd have them take a deep breath. And then when we do, we gather up all the stress and tension in the body and we release it with the breath. Keep those eyes open. One more time. And then we'd have them close the eyes. That's the induction part of the session. And now imagine yourself somewhere high up, either on a slope or a staircase, and then have them imagine walking down. You're on level 10. Now step down to level 9, deeper and deeper. And you would continue to slow down your voice and pause and really make room for that like theta thinking to happen, the theta waves to start to happen in the brain. And they go down all 10 levels, and they're now at the very bottom of relaxation where you're feeling calm and relaxed. And now imagine a place that's comfortable and safe for you. It's really calm. It could be a place you've been before or a place that you're just imagining. Just make sure that you feel calm and relaxed. We'd have them anchor in that place by mainly hand clasping their hands together really tightly, and say something like, in your waking life, if you clasp your hands together like this, if you're feeling stressed, then the memory of this place will come back to you. And so will those calm feelings. And that's a suggestion that you give them. And then you have them go back to the last time they really experienced a bad pain day. And we have them describe that. Now, this might be when their pulse goes up and body temperature starts to rise and breathing starts to get a little bit more shallow. And we really want to look for signs of shock, and like maybe we want to pull them back. Okay, so maybe let's just have the pain like 0 to 10. Where do you feel the pain? If it's a 10, we really want to pull them back into a relaxation sort of exercise. But if the pain is like maybe at a 2 or a 3, we can try and increase it. See, we want to have it to be a certain amount of distress without being too much distress. And then once they're at a certain level, we have them tell us their thoughts, and we write down their thoughts and how they're feeling in their body. And the physical body is going to be our barometer so that we know whether they're improving or not. If they're at a level 7, say, of pain, and when we're done with the session, we want to check back with them again to see if the pain has gone down. But we do want to keep our eyes on like, okay, so how's the chest feeling? How's your heart doing? How's your breathing? Is your stomach still hurting? We always want to check in with the body as we start to talk to each other. And I say, well, so here you are, and you're at this bad pain day, and your back is really, really hurting. What would that pain be saying? If that pain had a voice, what would the pain be saying? And it's typically going to be their own thoughts. How do you feel emotionally about having that pain? And what we want to do is get them as resourced as possible, which is that we want to get them as comfortable in a situation, either by visualizing or by doing some tapping techniques or something. We might do a regression back to the source. We would say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, tap, and then go back as far as they can to the first time that they had remembered feeling this way. And it's usually an emotional feeling. By this time, if it was due to an accident, then what typically happens when you have an accident that hurts your body, your physical body, the underlying emotional issues come out. So what we're doing when we do the regression on a chronic pain person is focusing on that emotional, like, where did the emotional root of this thing come from?
Yeah.
And go back to maybe an earlier age and work through that pain, the emotional pain, and be able to say, what was your conclusion about yourself at that time when you were 7? Why do I keep going back to 7? Probably because that was traumatic. That was a traumatic age for me.
Mm.
What was your conclusion about yourself at age 7 when you had this emotional feeling? It could be, a lot of times with chronic pain, it's anger. Like, they're angry because they're in pain and they were very resentful. So it could be some sort of a memory of, a fight with a friend, or angry at mom and dad for fighting. It's going to be something like that. Or it could be sadness as well comes up. So whatever the emotion is, you're going to want to keep track of it. And you're going to try and work with the conclusion that they had about themselves. Like, I'm a bad, wrong person, say, or I'm a bad kid. That would be a conclusion. And decision would be, I'm going to give up on everything. We would like to be able to provide them with resources and a healing technique, which can involve anything in your creative mind, in the therapist's creative mind. Or you could, you typically want to ask your client, like, so what does your body need? Does it need like a soothing light? Does it need sunshine? Does it need cool water? What does it need? And they'll come up with the most interesting things. Well, what's a word or a phrase that you could carry around with you that would help you with this pain? And they'll think of a word or a phrase, just let it come to you naturally. Where would you like to store that in your body so that your body would have that as a resource? And after you do the healing part of them, bring them back up. And as you bring them back up, you're saying, and now, even though you may be, you'd say something like, and if they still had some pain left, you would say, and maybe you still have some pain, but now you have the resources to handle it emotionally. And that pain is not going to be as big of a deal to you. It may be still there, and yet you have the resources to handle it. And that's how you would bring them up and out of the trance state. So that is the walkthrough. What did you think?
Well, I was almost in a trance myself when just listening to you talk, and you have such a great voice for this. Oh my gosh. So I'm in awe. Like, now, of course I do these interviews and I'm like, I want to go get trained in that. I want to be able to provide this for people, because I'm just thinking about so many folks that I know that are in chronic pain or have an eating disorder or have, depression. And it just sounds like it's so helpful for folks. So I'm excited. I'm thrilled that you do this work, and I know you're helping so many people.
Yeah, you've just inspired me to do a self-hypnosis. I have a mindfulness CD out there, but I should do a self-hypnosis. CDs are a little outdated, but you know what I mean.
You totally should. I know this is off topic a little bit, but I've thought about that. What would it be like if you did a podcast or a YouTube series on self-hypnosis? I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I might try that. You've just given me another idea for my wonderful, it's so thick, this idea book that I have, and a lot of ideas that I've got. So, well, we might put that on the front burner.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. There's the progression. So you thought it would be you thought you were getting hypnotized while I was talking.
Yeah. Really, because I was trying not to, because I was like, I gotta be alert for the interview. I'm in charge of that part of it, of making sure we cover all the content. So I was like, don't go there with her. But, as you were doing this, I was like, okay, well, maybe I don't want to hypnotize myself, but if I'm having a hard time going to bed at night, I can practice what your voice in my head of take your deep breaths, imagine going down a slope, just slowing things down. Instantly I'm put at ease, or I'm put at lower hertz.
Yeah, you were probably at least at alpha, the deep relaxation wave, for a little bit. And so that's That's great. Yeah. Sometimes when I'm in the therapy session with clients, I will say, I will slow down my voice because they are anxious.
Mhm.
And then I'll sort of joke with them like, there, I just hypnotized you. And they'll be
Mhm.
kind of like, what? And,
What?
and when I say that, it brings them out because I know they're in a trance. You can
Yeah.
tell that they're in a
Yeah.
trance in sometimes in the session. And so sometimes you can sneak a little hypnotherapy in there. I don't
Yeah, and
recommend you do that all the
right.
time.
Right, like, make sure you have their
Yeah,
permission. But
yeah.
I'm wondering if for those listening, I'd be curious, let us know if while you were listening to Tracy doing her walkthrough, if you felt yourself shift a little bit. I would love to know. Just, comment wherever you see this on
Mhm.
Instagram or Facebook or wherever, social media. Let us know if you were, put into a trance there, and let us know if you think Tracy should do some work for us. I think that would be so cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about when your patient or client is done and they're walking out the door. Like, what do you suggest as they're leaving? What do you kind of what's the homework from that, or
I
if there
love that you mentioned that because that's
mm,
one thing I totally forgot.
mm,
So what you want what I do is I write down the old conclusion and I'll put that
mhm,
old conclusion, I'm a bad kid,
mhm,
I'm going to give up. And so I'm a bad kid is the conclusion, the old decision is I'm going to give up. And then I'll put the new, and this is the positive programming that we hopefully got in there, but
mhm,
we're going to have them practice it. Their new conclusion about themselves, which is I am capable. And the new decision about themselves is I will continue to try.
mm,
And so they will practice saying the new conclusion and the new decision for themselves as homework. And that's what I give them as they're going out the door.
nice,
Mhm.
nice,
And that's
very
how
cool.
we do the cognitive restructuring under hypnosis,
Mhm.
essentially. And it was a lot of detailed explanation. And I was thinking as I was talking about the process, is like, I wonder if the Wellness Institute won't like the fact that I just told them basically in less than an hour how to do heart-centered hypnotherapy. But I think that everybody needs to know. Not everybody's trained to do it,
Mhm.
so I don't think that the Wellness Institute has to worry about anything.
And also, I had another speaker come on, and well, we were talking about meditation, and she was sharing with the listeners that you know you need to be trained in meditation to do meditation with your clients, and you also need to be doing it yourself. So I imagine if you are going to hop into this world of hypnosis or hypnotherapy, please know that we highly recommend that you go and you are a client first, and then if it's something that you want to move forward with, that you get some great training on this. I mean, this pod course is meant to be an introduction. It's meant to kind of get your feet wet in learning about hypnotherapy and see if it's something that you want to add to your practice, because effectiveness is real.
Mhm.
There's great research out there. All of this will be listed in the show notes. You can go and take a look and know that there is training out there. And I'm hopeful the Wellness Institute will see this as a plug for them, not so much as
Yeah, it
a
was a fleeting thought, and then I thought, "No, David and Diane wouldn't care." They would
yeah,
love it actually because
yeah,
it's more publicity for them, and
yeah.
it's spreading the heart-centered hypnotherapy
Mhm.
model. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it works on a lot of different things. In fact, the Hammond reference is a huge book I would pull off the shelf if this was a video, but it is really heavy book. It's like a
Mhm.
dictionary size book, and it's filled with hypnotic suggestions and metaphors for a variety of different conditions. It's sort of like the hypnotherapist's Bible, if you will,
Mhm.
of suggestions, ranging from self-esteem to even there are some in there for fear of surgical
Mhm.
procedures. And they'll go into detail too about different surgical procedures like dental procedures or some people going in for a hysterectomy. I mean,
Mhm.
they'll get really specific in that book. So yeah, hypnotherapy can work on a wide variety of
Mhm.
issues.
Very cool. Yeah. Are there any issues that are contraindicated? They should not be used.
Well, I would say if a person has extensive trauma, that we try and work on some other we really would have to work on some other methods first to be able to have because I've had people who have had extensive trauma under hypnotherapy and go into shock and be scared away from it. So the very first thing that comes to mind is if a person has so much trauma that they may be scared away by re-experiencing that and not being resourced enough or not having enough resources, then I would say that traditional talk therapy and or the traditional treatments for PTSD and trauma would probably be used better, like EFT, emotional freedom technique, would be probably better for that. I wouldn't put somebody in a trance because somebody else told me to. Like, I'll get this a lot more than you'd imagine. A mother wants me to hypnotize their child because they feel that their child's behavior is not good and they just want me to hypnotize them and before even trying anything else. And it's surprising because most of the mothers are people who are trained as hypnotherapists. They've found that it's beneficial, but they want me to hypnotize their kids. And I'm saying, if the kid wants to do it, okay, but we're going to have a long conversation first, and we're going to try some other therapy methods first. And I make that very clear to people. That's not, you can do effective hypnotherapy with children. And at the same time, you do have to be very careful because they are really susceptible to suggestion. And especially the suggestion that they need to be hypnotized may bring up some emotions, So let's try some other stuff first. Let's try some play therapy. Let's try some just learning some tapping, some EFT or whatever it might be. So, and then I would say too, the other thing is, use your intuition. A lot of times with a client who is just like, well, I guess this is the last ditch effort resort, sort of thing. And let's see if it works. So let's try it. And I'm not really confident that it's going to work, but okay. I probably wouldn't do a hypnotherapy session on them. And because I've found that it either goes two ways. One, nothing happens, or two, a lot of things happen and they're scared away from therapy. You don't want to scare your clients away from therapy. That's one of the things I learned in my master's program. Is like, we want to continue to have people have confidence in therapy because the research has shown that therapy does work and it produces desired changes in people who really want to, roll with whatever therapy method that they're undergoing. So we want to keep them in therapy. So I think any condition, could be treated with hypnotherapy, but those types of individuals, I would maybe reconsider.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. That makes total sense. Yeah. You want them to have an attitude towards, well, let's give it a try. I'm open. You want them to be open.
Right.
You want them to be open to trying or giving it a go. And I think that's really interesting that just because somebody wants it doesn't mean that you're going to initially hand it over to them. So that says a lot about your ethics and your values as a therapist. So I think that's really, really great.
Right. And I think I mentioned before that I wouldn't do hypnotherapy on somebody who just wanted to see what's in there or explore and like not have a goal in mind, because that's just it. Sometimes it'll bring up stuff that doesn't really need to be brought up, or a person could just sort of be imagining things, and then they'll go out and tell their friends, well, I've had a past life where I was, a poor little urchin on the street, and that's why I feel a certain way, or they might do that for as attention seeking stuff. But if they have an actual problem to work on, I'll be interested in having a conversation about hypnotherapy. But if they just want to explore past lives or something to where there's no present problem,
right,
then I don't think I would do hypnotherapy on them. We'd have a conversation.
So it's almost like you want them to have a presenting problem. It's
exactly.
Not like, you want as a therapist, we want to know what the presenting problem is.
Yeah.
It's always what we want to know, and we could talk for hours about people who just want to talk to us.
Yeah. Well, and there are a lot of lonely people out there, and it's good. Let's work on something. There's always something.
Yeah.
We have that book has everything from, so you can use hypnotherapy for stress and anxiety, as I've illustrated before, depression. It would be the same method, just going and finding the feelings in the body when you're depressed. Some people will say that they feel like they have a big weight on them, or that their head feels heavy or fuzzy or whatever it is. I like drawing a little diagram. It looks like a gingerbread man or a bad linebacker on a football team. And then you color in the areas of like pain and distress in their bodies. And so depression is often like a really big weight. And then hypnotherapy works really well with self-esteem, improving self-esteem, confidence, as we said before, chronic pain. So if you're going into surgery and you're anxious, and you can actually do self-hypnosis on this, is like running the tapes in your head. You'll be fine. We have resources. Some people will imagine angels being with them in the room when they have their surgery. Smoking, actually, that's a really big one, a smoking cessation, and people who want to stop smoking. There's different methods that you can use for stopping smoking. But traditionally, you could go with, okay, what is the emotion that you feel when you grab one of those cigarettes? Or what's the emotion that you feel right before you grab a cigarette? So somebody will grab a cigarette if they're anxious, possibly, or depressed. And we want to explore the root of that emotion. And that's where we go and we pick up the hypnotherapy. And it's like, it's not about the smoking. It's about the why we pick up that cigarette and what relief that cigarette gives us after we start to smoke it. And eating disorders, all kinds of food-related hypnotherapy has happened with people who have been in and out of treatment programs and in and out of therapists, that they come and some people will say, I don't know what else to do with this person. Tracy, can you help them? Just a couple of sessions. And I'm just like, it's usually not just a couple of sessions, but I'm finding though that when people are seeing an outside therapist who doesn't know how to do hypnotherapy and they send them over to me for just a couple of sessions, it really moves them forward in a different way with their eating and food related issues. So
that's cool.
And I think we could also say that hypnotherapy works with relationship problems if you're having a challenge with a person in your world. So if you're dissatisfied with the way your romantic relationship is going or with your spouse, and work related issues as well. So it works on everything.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's incredible. Well, thank you, Tracy, so much for coming on the show and explaining everything that you know about hypnotherapy. This has just been fascinating. I can't wait to learn more. I'm definitely going to be looking at the references that you have provided us, and they're all in the show notes, you guys. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we end?
I would just like to say that I am invested in everybody's mental and physical wellness. And I think that the people out there need to know that therapists really want to help you in any way that they can, what other methods that they have. And whatever methods that you're currently practicing, I think you can benefit by just listening and looking at your clients a little bit more, observing, and also helping them realize that they have the resources that they need to transcend any kind of problem. You can do that no matter what therapy method that you're using. So thank you all for doing that good work out there, because it's so appreciated.
It is. Oh my gosh. I love how you ended the show with that. So you guys have a great rest of your day, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. You can, if you did and you want to receive one continuing education contact hour, just head over to my site, lisamustard.com/podcourses, and you can click purchase when this Podcourse is available. Thanks again, Tracy.
You're welcome.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine.
Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content.
And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.